The light rain gently falls, like unsaid tears dropping on the quiet village road. Under the veil of rain, a soldier returns, without a word of greeting, without any joyous welcome. His hands are rough and calloused, marks of the years of battle, of long, grueling marches. His prematurely gray hair, his stern face, and the scars, both on the surface and deep within his soul, are proof of a life that has endured much pain. He had once been a hero, the pride of his family, the pride of his village. But now, he has nothing but empty hands. No wealth, no home, no close friends. What remains in him is an endless love for his little child, for the family he left behind when he went to serve. Those hands, once firm on a gun, fighting to protect his homeland, now tremble as they hold a small bag containing a few gifts for his daughter, whom he hasn't seen in years. He raises his head and looks ahead, his eyes filled with sadness but also a fragile hope. The rain continues to fall, like moments of time that cannot be returned. Dad's home, my child, a simple phrase, yet it seems to have been etched deeply into his heart all these years, making every step on this empty road feel heavier than ever. But does his child still remember? Will she recognize her father? Or will everything he left behind be forgotten in the memories of those who once loved him? When he stepped into the old house, the place he had once believed to be home, everything now felt unfamiliar. The rusty gate, the overgrown garden, and the faded walls no longer held the vibrancy they had when he left. The house, like his life, felt empty and lonely. The only sounds in the house could be heard as his footsteps echoed against walls that no longer felt warm, no longer filled with affection as before. His wife no longer greeted him with the smile he remembered. After all these years of separation, after all the letters, when he finally returned, the woman he had once loved looked at him with cold eyes. "Why are you back?" she asked, her voice dry, as if his presence only made everything worse. "What do you think? Leaving us to fend for ourselves all these years? Now you come back with nothing but these trivial gifts?" Her words struck him like a painful slap. He didn't reply, standing silently and looking at her, then turning his gaze to his daughter. But the happiness he once saw in her eyes when she looked at him was gone. Instead, there was a cold indifference, a detachment he had never felt before. His daughter had grown up, developed her own thoughts, and to her, the hero she once admired was no longer the same person. "Where's Dad? Is he still my father?" The painful questions from his daughter echoed in his mind. The sweet memories he had carried with him now seemed like a faded, blurry picture, no longer clear. The days of war had taken so much from him. He had lost not only his health and youth but also his family, the connection he once trusted. Now, standing among his loved ones, he felt like a stranger. The pain came not only from his wife's reproach but also from his daughter's indifference, the one he had fought and sacrificed for. "Dad has nothing," he heard his wife say. "You've been gone for so long, and we had to take care of ourselves. What can you do now? Do your promises even mean anything anymore?" Those words kept haunting him, making him feel like a failure, a man who couldn't keep his promises. He had spent all those years protecting the country, protecting them. But now, when he returned, he couldn't even protect his own family. Night after night, he lay awake, thinking about everything that had passed. He remembered the times before he left, when his wife had hugged him, crying, telling him to come back. He remembered the bright mornings when his daughter would run to him, hugging him with a smile as bright as the morning sun. But now, all those images seemed to have vanished, leaving only silence, distance, and wounds that couldn't be healed. Each day, he tried to smile, but inside, the pain was too much to express in words. The past, all that he had given, now seemed to hold no value in the eyes of others. And he wondered, could he ever get back what he had lost? Could his love for his family heal all the wounds? Or in the end, was he just a soldier who had completed his duty, but failed to fulfill the role of a father, a husband? After days of silence, the soldier received word from an old friend that he had inherited an old house left to him by his grandfather. This house was not in the city, but in a remote village, a place where people had lived through many years of war. He didn't think much of it, as after everything that had happened, he felt nothing else mattered anymore. But with no other options, he decided to go. The house was located on the outskirts of a small village. Upon entering, the atmosphere was old and desolate. The house, worn with time, had rusted windows, a wooden table that had been worn down by years, and objects that held no value to him. The house had no light, no warmth of affection. All that remained was silence and emptiness. Much like his life now. In the first few days there, he only wandered around the house, cleaning up what remained of his grandparents' belongings. Everything was old. Nothing offered any hope for the future. The faded photographs, the worn-out decorations, all seemed to remind him of a past that he could never return to. But the more he looked at it, the more he felt a strange connection. Something he had never noticed before. One afternoon, while cleaning the attic, he found an old wooden box. Deep in a corner, the box was worn from time, the wood showing signs of decay. He opened it to find a yellowed notebook, its pages filled with scribbled notes his grandfather had left behind. These were records about an old base, where his grandfather had fought during the war. The details in the notebook surprised him. This base wasn't just any place. It could have been part of a larger campaign his grandfather had participated in. He began reading more carefully, and the more he read, the more he realized that this notebook seemed like an important document that no one was supposed to know about. The notes about strategies, special forces teams, hidden weapons caches, all seemed to reveal a secret he had never considered. Why had his grandfather recorded these details? And why were they hidden here, in this house? His curiosity grew, and if the notes were true, this could be the key to not only uncovering his family's legacy, but also to a life-changing journey he never thought possible. He began searching more, hoping to find even more hidden secrets within the house. Each day, he uncovered more strange items, like old maps, black and white photos, and small notes about battles he had never known. It seemed that this old house, despite its age and decay, had a strange power. It wasn't just a place he had lived, it was the key to unlocking a past he needed to confront. He realized that this house, with all the secrets and the legacy of his family, would be the beginning of a new journey he was meant to follow. But where would this journey lead him? And would he be strong enough to face the secrets within? The answers could only be revealed as he continued his search through the house, uncovering what had been buried deep in the past. Each day, he became more immersed in the notes his grandfather had left behind. The seemingly trivial details were opening up larger questions. Each page described the marches, strategies, and fierce battles his grandfather had fought in the war. But unlike the stories he had heard growing up, these notes didn't quite match up with what he had known. From the notebook, he realized that his grandfather had been part of a special unit. It wasn't just a group of soldiers fighting on the front lines. It was a team tasked with gathering intelligence, collecting information about the enemy. But one thing seemed strange to him. This unit wasn't known in the history stories he had learned. There were no records, no memories of them in history books. Why was that? Could this be part of a secret operation that had been covered up? One day, while continuing to clean the basement of the house, he discovered an old iron cabinet, seemingly abandoned for a long time. The cabinet was rusted, but when he opened it, he found a collection of old documents neatly folded and stacked. Inside were old maps, coded notes, and black and white photos of strategic areas he had never heard of. One of the maps marked a location he didn't recognize, an area deep in the forest, somewhere no one in his family had ever mentioned. Another document caught his attention. It was a diary, seemingly belonging to a soldier in that special unit. The entries were brief, but they gave him chills. The soldier wrote about a mysterious operation that he and his comrades had taken part in. In a remote, abandoned area deep in the mountains, they had discovered a large weapons cache, advanced weaponry that the army had never known about. But that wasn't what disturbed him the most. There was another note that sent a shiver down his spine. Report on an operation that was erased. No information about this weapons cache can ever be revealed. He suddenly realized that what his grandfather had done might not have been just a military mission. Perhaps he had been involved in an important operation that the government wanted to keep hidden. And what disturbed him even more was that there were no names. No traces of the unit his grandfather had served with in any of these documents. This meant that the entire operation had been erased from official history. Day by day, he felt himself being pulled deeper into the mysteries his grandfather had left behind. With each new document, each new piece of evidence, he realized that everything he thought he knew about his family's history, about the sacrifices his ancestors made, was just the surface of a much larger story. This house, with all the secrets it contained, was not just a home, it was the place where monumental events had occurred that he could never have imagined. He kept searching the house, digging deeper into its forgotten corners. Once again, in the attic, he found an old suitcase. It was a steel suitcase, with no lock, but when he opened it, he was shocked to find military uniforms, medals, and a handgun, items he never thought he'd find in an ordinary house. But what stunned him the most was a map, rolled up and stored inside the suitcase. On the map, a red dot was marked, indicating the destination of an important military operation. A strategic area deep in the mountains. The light in the house seemed to dim as he stared at that map. He realized that what his grandfather had done wasn't simple. It wasn't just about defending the country in war. It was part of a larger military strategy that might be connected to a conspiracy that no one ever wanted to speak of. A sense of unease rose in him. Why had these secrets been kept hidden for so long? Why had his grandfather left these documents for him to find? If they could put him in danger? He couldn't stop asking himself, did these secrets truly belong to his family? Or were they the final pieces of a puzzle that he wasn't strong enough to understand? And as he kept digging, he felt something deeper. What he was uncovering wasn't just a collection of past artifacts. It might be crucial pieces of a war he had never known, an ongoing war not only fought on the battlefield but also in the shadows. In secrets that only old soldiers would ever understand. The following days were filled with an odd, mounting tension. The more he delved into the documents his grandfather had left behind, the more he felt like he was stepping into an endless maze of secrets and danger. Each new discovery led him down a new path, raising questions without answers. Inside, curiosity and fear intertwined as he realized that what he was uncovering wasn't just buried history. It might be the remnants of a larger conspiracy. One that could threaten his very life. One morning, as he was reviewing old photos of his grandfather and his comrades, he received an unexpected phone call from a stranger. The voice on the other end was cold, as if the caller already knew everything he was doing. "I know what you're looking for," the man said, "but don't think it's going to be easy to uncover everything." Then, the call abruptly ended. The warning echoed in his mind all day. He couldn't understand why a stranger would know so much about what he was doing. The documents, the information he had found, seemed to hold value not just for his family but for something larger. Something more powerful than he could imagine. An invisible threat had appeared, and he could feel the danger closing in. The silence of the old house grew heavier. He couldn't figure out who the man was. But one thing was certain. The things he was learning might not only affect him but could also endanger his family, the very people he had always tried to protect. He knew he had to find the truth, no matter what the cost. Just as he was preparing to continue his research, an unexpected event occurred. One afternoon, while discussing his findings with an old friend, the house was attacked. A group of men, wearing black clothes and masks, stormed in and began ransacking the house. They searched every corner, taking away all the important documents he had uncovered. Amid the chaos, one of the men threatened him, saying, "If you want to keep your life and your family safe, you'd better stop looking into this. These things are not for someone like you." Furious, he rushed at them, but was immediately shoved to the ground by a large man. The intruders didn't just steal the documents. They made it clear, if he didn't stop searching for the truth, he wouldn't get another chance. Before leaving, one of the attackers left a business card. It simply read, "We are always watching. Don't challenge fate." Lying on the floor, he felt his heart pounding, a mix of fear and anger rising in him. Everything he had found seemed to be pulling him into a fight he wasn't prepared for. What his grandfather had left behind, the secret documents he thought would help him understand his family's past, had now become a threat to his own life. He couldn't give up. After the attack, he decided he would get to the bottom of everything. The pieces he had found were slowly revealing a much bigger picture. One he hadn't yet fully understood. He realized that these documents weren't just to clarify his family's history. They were part of a military operation that the government had been trying to bury. An operation that could change everything he knew about the war his grandfather had fought in. Despite constant threats and warnings, the soldier couldn't abandon his search. What his grandfather had left behind wasn't just simple war documents, they were crucial pieces in a puzzle he had never imagined. The discoveries in the old diary, the maps, the military operations his grandfather had been involved in, everything pointed to one large question: why had all of this been kept secret? One night, as fears about his family's safety swirled in his mind, he made a decision. He had to continue searching for the truth. No matter the cost. It wasn't because he wasn't afraid, it was because he knew if he gave up, not only would he be in danger, but his family would be caught in a web of conspiracies they couldn't escape from. He promised himself that no matter what, he would uncover why his family had been dragged into these secrets. Over the next few days, he continued searching through the house, opening every drawer and checking every nook and cranny, each time discovering new pieces of the puzzle. But this time, in a hidden compartment in the wall, he found a metal box. The box wasn't locked, but it had a code written on it in a cipher that he couldn't immediately read. However, recalling the cryptic lessons his grandfather had taught him about decoding, he decided to give it a try. After a long and difficult time decoding the code, he finally managed to open the box. Inside wasn't a stack of military papers, as he had expected, but a small USB drive, an old pencil, and a well-worn diary. But the most shocking item was a handwritten letter from his grandfather, dated almost exactly around the time he had left the army. The letter read, "Son, if you're holding this letter, then you've found everything we've been hiding. What you are about to see is all that remains of a war we never wanted to remember. It's not just a war between nations, it's a war within our family. But you need to know this. What you find will not help you unless you can face the truth, and the cost of knowing it will be very high." His grandfather's words felt like a chilling warning. He sensed that his grandfather had known exactly what he was walking into. He decided to immediately check the contents of the USB. Even though everything around him was becoming increasingly tense, he connected the USB to his computer and opened the first file. A video appeared on the screen, just under 3 minutes long. Inside the video were blurry, slow-motion shots of a massive weapons cache hidden deep underground. These weren't ordinary weapons, they were advanced technologies that could change the course of war. Not just for one country but for the entire world. But what shocked him the most was the faces that appeared in the video. Some were soldiers who had fought alongside his grandfather. But one man was someone he never expected to see, an official military officer from a country he had never heard of before. He couldn't believe his eyes. Who was this man in the video? Why had his grandfather recorded this? And why had such a weapons cache been hidden for so long? These questions were burning in his mind. But he began to feel something more. He wasn't just searching for family history anymore. This was no ordinary discovery. It was a confrontation with something much larger and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. While he was still processing what he had just seen, his phone rang again. This time, it was a familiar voice, his grandfather's old friend, the one he had met earlier. But instead of offering reassurance, the man said one sentence, leaving him even more unsettled. "Everything you found is the truth. But it will destroy you. Destroy everyone, if you don't know how to stop." The warning only added to the confusion. He knew he had touched on something incredibly dangerous. But he had come too far to turn back now. The question was, could he really stop himself from continuing this search? Or had he already gone too deep into something that was beyond his control? The soldier's steps no longer felt as slow as before, although he still carried the heavy burden of unanswered questions and fears he couldn't shake. The light at the end of the tunnel finally appeared, guiding him toward the path he needed to follow. After discovering the truth about the weapons cache and the secrets his grandfather had hidden, he realized he was fighting not just for his family, but for a much greater mission. What he was doing wasn't just uncovering the past, it was about protecting the future. He couldn't stand still. Every time he thought about the threats his family and community might face if these secrets were exposed, he became more determined. He couldn't let such a legacy be buried forever. Nor could he let those who would misuse it to cause harm. Once he realized he was up against powerful forces, he decided to find a way to notify the authorities, the ones who could help him make these truths known and protect the things his grandfather had fought so hard to protect. But he knew he couldn't do this recklessly. He needed to seek help from trustworthy people, those not tied to the shadowy forces and, most importantly, those who wouldn't betray the values his ancestors had fought to preserve. In the following days, he reached out to an old friend, a fellow veteran he knew would be able to assist him. This friend, after years of silence, had become a security expert, though he kept a low profile and avoided political or social disputes. However, after reviewing the documents the soldier had found, the friend's attitude completely shifted. "You're not just protecting your family. You're protecting a legacy we've fought for all our lives. Not everyone will understand that," his old friend said after looking through the files on the USB. He continued, "I'll help you, but you need to know, this isn't a small fight. It's a war against forces we can't even begin to predict." After their meeting, the two of them set to work. The soldier's friend, with his expertise in investigative methods, helped him contact the proper authorities. The authorities confirmed that the documents the soldier had uncovered were indeed tied to a secret military operation the government had been trying to erase. The advanced technologies his grandfather had written about weren't just a family history. They were part of a covert military strategy that had been kept hidden for years. These weapons could alter the balance of warfare, but they could also be misused if they fell into the wrong hands. In the end, with the support of his old friend and the connections he had made during his time in the military, the soldier was able to report the findings to the authorities. The government decided to reopen the investigation into the operation, with the help of national security experts. After months of investigation, the documents the soldier discovered were verified as legitimate. Finally, the secrets his grandfather had hidden for so long were exposed, but not in the way the soldier had imagined. The government acknowledged his grandfather's contributions to the war, and discovering the hidden weapons cache helped protect crucial military assets from falling into the wrong hands. However, what was more important than anything else was the recognition that this soldier wasn't just a protector of his country, but a guardian of the deep values of his family and the nation he had fought for. Soon after the truth came to light, the soldier received apologies from his family. His wife, now fully aware of everything that had happened, came to him with tears in her eyes, her gaze filled with remorse. She finally understood the sacrifices he had made, the pain he had endured, and the boundless love he had for his family. "I'm sorry, I didn't understand you," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I was wrong not to trust you. I didn't realize how much you had sacrificed." He simply smiled, not saying a word, but inside, he felt a small joy. Finally, after all the years apart, he and his wife could stand together, face the past they had ignored, and begin rebuilding their relationship. Not only his wife, but his daughter began to change as well. In the days that followed, she came to him, wrapped her arms around him, and tears filled her eyes. "Dad, I'm sorry. I know you've always loved me, and I never realized that." Her apology broke him, and he couldn't hold back his tears. At last, he was able to return to his family, restore the values he had lost, and protect what his grandfather had left behind. Though it had never been easy, he knew that a soldier's sacrifice and love were never in vain. He had protected not only what was important to him but also the legacy and values his ancestors had built. In the days that followed, he lived in peace, though still anxious about the world around him. He understood one thing clearly: the true value of a soldier lies not in the victories won or weapons wielded, but in how they keep their promises and silently sacrifice for those they love. Everything has returned to a peaceful rhythm, but in the soldier's heart, there is a profound change that only he can feel. After the investigation concluded and the secrets his grandfather had kept hidden for so many years were brought to light. The advanced weapons, the military strategies that were once kept secret, no longer posed a danger if they fell into the wrong hands. The government had retrieved the confidential documents and ensured the military legacy his grandfather had safeguarded for so long was protected. But for him, it wasn't just a victory of justice, it was a victory of love, of values that had been forgotten. In the end, the soldier finally found his place again. His wife, his daughter, they had all come to understand and forgive. His family gathered once more around the dinner table, sharing the peaceful moments they had once taken for granted. This simple scene, though ordinary, held immense significance for him, a testament to the sacrifices he had made. However, even though everything seemed settled, there were still questions left unanswered in his heart. He had paid a steep price to clear his name. But was the cost truly worth what he had achieved? Had he truly won? Or was he just a pawn in a larger game? One that he could never fully understand? Everything felt too complicated, and there were no clear answers. There are some questions that he cannot answer, because they have no answers. And there are truths that, no matter how much he wants, cannot be changed. A soldier isn't always the victor in every battle. Sometimes, victory isn't about defeating the enemy, it's about understanding what you've sacrificed for. And whether that sacrifice was truly worth it. He looks toward the distance, where the sun is slowly setting behind the hills. The surroundings are quiet, and in that moment, he realizes that no matter how life unfolds, no matter what challenges lie ahead, he will always be a soldier. Not because he fought in a war, but because he is always ready to protect the values he believes in. The values of family, loyalty, and unconditional love for those dear to him. But as he reflects on the path he's walked, he can't help but ask himself a bigger question. Did I really do the right thing? Did everything he did truly matter? And will everyone, especially his family, ever fully understand the sacrifices he made to protect them? Perhaps. There is no clear answer to these questions. The life of a soldier is never a perfect one. He's paid a high price for what he's achieved. But in his heart, there's one thing he is certain of. He did everything for his family. For the ones he loves. And no matter how many more sacrifices he has to make, he will continue to fight, not to win, but to protect the values that he believes are the most important. And then he looks back at his loved ones beside him. His daughter, now grown and understanding the sacrifices her father made, embraces him tightly. His wife, though she once misunderstood and blamed him, now understands the depth of his love for the family. They sit together, in a space filled with love and forgiveness. These simple moments, though small, are incredibly meaningful to him. From that day onward, the soldier's life entered a new chapter. No longer burdened by dark secrets or endless battles. He found peace. But it wasn't because he had won the biggest fight, it was because he had learned how to love and forgive. That, in the end, was the greatest victory he had achieved, his victory over himself. All he can do now is continue living by the values he has kept dear. But one question still lingers in his mind, a question that isn't easy to answer. Were these sacrifices truly worth it? As the days passed, the soldier gradually returned to a peaceful life. He had found forgiveness from his loved ones. But in his heart, the big questions still remained. The sacrifices, the pain, were they truly worth it? Had he done the right thing by not abandoning the search, by not letting these secrets fade into oblivion? And did the truth he uncovered really change anything? Looking at his family, he knows he has protected them with all his strength and love. But do they truly understand what he's been through? Do they see the value in the silent sacrifices he's made over all these years? He can't help but ask himself, have these sacrifices truly made my family's life better? Did I fight for something worthwhile? And did it bring about change for the people I love? That is the question he leaves for himself. But it's also a question for you, the ones who have been following his story. Have you ever asked yourself about the value of sacrifices? Would you be willing to give up everything for an ideal? For a value, or just to protect the ones you love? Share your thoughts in the comments. This story may be the soldier's, but it could also be yours. What do you think about the sacrifices and values we're chasing in this life?